And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we're going to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks and some potential flaws that they might be happening going into this season, as well as further beyond in this season. Now, if you guys tune into this podcast regularly, then you guys would know that my opinions on Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham as coaches are just very, very poor. So I'm not going to focus on those issues right now. I'm going to focus on some other issues regarding their roster as opposed to regarding their coaching problems. So, as we know, over the summer, Milwaukee Bucks, alongside with the Lakers, they were rather quiet in the offseason. So, they only acquired Taurean Prince, Gary Trent Jr., and Dylan Wright, and the only additions that they really made were Doc Rivers as the coach. And, Darvin Ham as an assistant coach, and those few players. Those were there were very few moves that the Milwaukee Bucks made, and the front office is banking on the team's core to sort of be able to bounce back after a relatively difficult season. Now, I will say that I don't really see this as a bad thing. Now, while Damian Lillard, he didn't really play all that well last season, in case any of you guys forgot, I did a segment on this before, but Damian Lillard, he actually told Doc that he was not in proper shape for this season. And why wasn't he in proper shape, you might ask? It was because he knew he was going to get traded from Portland in the offseason. Like 2 off seasons ago, just so you guys could remember. He knew he was going to get traded, and as a result, he didn't want to work out in fear of possibly getting injured. Yes, that does happen. In fact, I had a football teammate who he ended up getting injured while lifting weights, and he was out for the season. It was really bad. But again, those kind of issues he wanted to avoid to ensure that he would get traded from Portland. And that was why Damian Lillard wasn't in shape. So I expect a much different look at Damian Lillard this season. I do expect him to be in shape, and I do expect him to be ready to play a good basketball for this coming season, alongside with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And there's obviously still no escaping Milwaukee Bucks, and they're, unless injuries succumb to them, I will say that. They've been eliminated in the first round of the postseason the last 2 seasons in regards to injuries. And adding Damian Lillard last summer didn't really do much to alter that mindset and to alter them not being injured, right? So as we enter into the 2024 and 2025 season, the Bucks, they must accept some of their biggest flaws in the roster, and that is the fact that these players aren't getting any younger. Brook Lopez is 36 years old, and he's clearly starting to show some signs of decline. Not to mention Chris Middleton also being 33 years old. And now that he's been degraded to the third option, he was fantastic in the postseason, by the way, I will say that. But he did have some injury problems as well. And, it's really those injuries for Chris Middleton, it seemed to sort of zap the quick first step that he used to have. And even Damian Lillard, while I did say I do think he's going to be in shape for this season, he is 34 years old. And is on the wrong side of his prime playing years. This is what happens when you waste your time in Portland. But that's another issue that he had, and that's something else. I don't even know why he was playing for Portland for all those years. But aside from that, when healthy, however, the Bucks, they are a championship contending team. That's also half the battle, though. They have to be healthy. Giannis and Lillard, they ensure that they must be taken seriously, especially during the regular season. They are a very solid pick and roll tandem, and there aren't many better offensive 2-man games in the NBA aside from these two. Giannis and Lillard can't win a championship on their own, however. Milwaukee, they did add, perimeter threats like Trent Jr., while Prince can provide some 2-way production for their team. But they must get some high-level production from Lopez, and, given the fact that he's so old, it's not entirely guaranteed. Middleton is also another player that they need to get solid production out of, but again, age is a problem. And, they need that if the roster has any sort of hopes of succeeding in this season. So, Lopez has been the bedrock of the team's defensive structure alongside with Giannis Antetokounmpo, and at the same time, Middleton has been the release valve that punishes teams when they collapse on Giannis's drive. And both players, they're very, very integral to the championship run. You can't beat the aging process, however, unless you're LeBron James. And all you can do is adjust and try to adapt. So if the Bucks have another early postseason exit, the front office might have to look to try and rebuilding the roster, and while still creating a competent enough team to compete in the postseason with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard as, partners on the roster. Like, that's really going to be the issue for this team, the fact that they aren't getting any younger. And not only that, also being sure to, be able to stay healthy throughout the postseason. Because I am fully confident that if the Bucks were healthy, they would have eliminated the Pacers easily. If the Knicks were healthy, they would have eliminated the Pacers easily. Like, no question about it, in my opinion. I mean, the Bucks surprisingly ended up winning 2 games against the Pacers in that series, and the Pacers made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. And they won those 2 games when they weren't even expected to win those 2 games. They won it with Damian Lillard in there, and then they won it with Chris Middleton without Dame or Giannis. So the roster is good. The roster is definitely solid enough to make it far into the postseason. Now, half the battle is just doing it and also being able to stay healthy while you're doing it. And again, I feel like this should have been an easy win for the Bucks in the playoffs if Giannis was healthy. Granted, I do understand that the Pacers, they were dominating the Bucks throughout a majority of the regular season. I believe the Bucks' record against them was like 1-4, counting play-in tournament. Not play-in tournament, excuse me. In-season tournament, I'm mistaken the two sometimes. It's a new thing, so forgive me. But at the end of the day, playoffs are a completely different story than the regular season. And teams tend to take things a lot more seriously when they go into the postseason, especially Giannis Antetokounmpo. Goodness me, Giannis, fantastic postseason performer. I don't care what anyone says about him missing his free throws. His game is so simple. He just runs and dunk. It doesn't matter. It works. It gives them 32 points per game on 60% efficiency. You guys are just hating if you don't like Giannis's game. It's that simple. If you could score 32 points just by running to the basket and dunking the ball, I guarantee you guys would do that exact same thing. We need to stop with this Giannis can only run and dunk thing, because clearly it's more to that than just running and dunking. There's so many players that could run and dunk, but they don't do it nearly as well as Giannis. They don't average 32 like Giannis. They don't do this. They don't do that like Giannis. It's just, stop it. Stop with the hate. Giannis is arguably the second best player in the entire NBA. And when you have a talent like that paired up with Damian Lillard, now the half the battle is just staying healthy and also having a very solid supporting cast in case Dame or Giannis end up not playing well, because they're still human, which is something that I feel like a lot of people forget, that humans can mess up, and that's okay. That's what makes us who we are. But that's really all that I have for this segment. Again, this problem with the Bucks, and in conclusion, they have to worry about age, and they have to worry about the possibility of creating a new roster for Dame and Giannis Antetokounmpo to continue being a competing and a championship level team, because the East is only getting all that more competitive. The Boston Celtics, the 76ers, and the New York Knicks, combined with the possibility that the Cavs or the Orlando Magic could end up increasing in their production. The East is starting to get a little bit more competitive. They have to try and remain to be the top dogs in the Eastern Conference. And while I do think that the coaching is going to hinder that just a little bit, I don't know why they fired their previous coach after winning all that much, but that's besides the point. And those are really the only problems that I got with the Bucks. So aside from that, we're going to go ahead and go into the 5th segment, where I do my preseason recap of all the games that went down the other day. So I'll be right back after this short break. If you guys are interested, be sure to stay tuned.